Hey, this is Dominic, and this is your home for the cutting-edge conversations on optimizing your personal performance, lighting up your sex life, and living a purpose-driven life of your own design.
These are the topics that Dominic and I have both struggled with in our own lives and still don't always get right. This is Brian. Welcome to the Great Man Podcast.
Welcome to episode number 2 of our 3-part interview series with Daryl Davis, the black man who's gotten over 200 members of the KKK to lose their robes and their hoods. And just a quick reminder that this is a reboot of my original Daryl Davis interviews from way back in 2019 that are more timely and relevant now than ever. There may be some dated references in here, but you're getting the reboot of the conversations from 2019. Enjoy this second interview. Daryl covers a lot of ground in this episode, ranging from how the KKK is constantly rebranding to avoid stigma so they can continue to drive membership, to how he's able to not take the hatred so personally so he can remain at the table and forge relationships and friendships, because he calls them friendships, with these Klan's members. And where we're going to begin is another unbelievable story of many unbelievable stories that Daryl has with respect to the time that he lent his music tour bus to the KKK for a Klan rally because they could no longer rent buses from their own rental facility. Here we are, Daryl at his best.
I'll tell you the bus story. The Wizard of the Klan, this particular group, he called me. He's in another county. And he calls me and he says, "Hey, do you know any places down there in your county that rent buses?" And I said, no, I don't really, I'm sure there are some, but I have my own bus because I have a band. I don't rent them. So I can look around for you. Why? And he told me because the company that he was dealing with in his county, they won't rent to him anymore because every time they rent him a bus, people know it's the Klan, and they throw rocks and dent the bus and break the windows. So he figures that if he can rent one from somewhere else, people won't know. So I was thinking about it. But he was going to have a march. They marched down for a mile or whatever, and their ropes and hoods down some main street or whatever. I said, "When is your event?" He told me the date. I looked on my calendar, and I saw, I didn't have a gig that day. I said, "I'll tell you what. I'll lend you my bus." And he started laughing. I said, "No, I'm serious." He goes, "Are you being for real?" I said, "Yeah, I'm serious. I'll give you money for it." And I said, no, you don't have to rent it from me. I said, "I'll give it to you. All you have to do is just return it with a full tank." He said, "All right." He and another Klansman came down to my house, took my bus. I let them use it. And I went to their event, and they're all in my bus with their hoods and stuff on.
Twilight Zone.
It was, man. It was crazy. What was funny was nobody knew about this march. They're marching down a main street here in Montgomery County, Maryland, over in Germantown. Only people who knew about it were the police, and they did not publicize it because it would draw a whole lot of protesters and riots were broken out and all kinds of stuff. My secretary and I, and this girl that I was dating, the guy had told me exactly where the march was going to be. We're standing on the corner waiting for them to come, and there were cops posted everywhere, right? My secretary and my girlfriend had walked a few feet away from me. My secretary smoked, and so she won't be near me because I don't smoke. So she about 10 feet away. Anyway, so I'm just standing there. These 2 cops kept watching me, and they said to me, "Are you trying to cross the street?" I said, "No." And they said, "So what's going on?" I said, "Not much. What's going on with you?"
Like cat and mouse game.
Yeah. I said, "Well, are you waiting for something in particular?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what would that be?" I said, "The same thing you're waiting for." And they said, "Well, what would that be?" I said, "You don't know?"
Pack.
Right. And so they gave up on me and walked over to the women. And they said, "Are you all waiting for something?" And they both said, "Yeah." And they said, "What?" And they said, "The Klan." And they're like, cuffs were like, "Well, how did you know about that?" They both pointed at me.
So now the cops have to come back and talk to you.
Right, they have to come back and talk to me. And so right about that time, this lady police officer, who was their superior, pulls up in an unmarked car. Now, I knew her.
Okay.
I knew her, and she knew me. They're telling her about me. And she goes, yeah, he knows who they are. And they're like scratching their heads. And they're like watching each car that comes by, right? And so I see my bus up there. And here comes the bus. The Imperial Wizard is driving it. He waves at me and I wave at him. And all these Klansmen with these hoods, they all wave.
in your bus?
In my bus, yeah. And I told the cop, I said, that's them. And they're like, huh? Because he saw them like wave at me, but he couldn't see all through my windows, see all the stuff. They looked at her, the police lady, and she knows. If she says it is, that's who it is. So they got their radios, they call all the other people. And so the bus goes down there and makes a U-turn. What they did was they drove the route first and made a U-turn, came back up, and then they parked up here by us. And then they got out and they walked. They walked on the sidewalk, and I walked in the median with them, taking pictures and just documenting it. And every now and then some car would drive by and yell some obscenities, all that kind of stuff. Somebody ran inside their house and ran back out with some homemade sign, F the Klan and all that kind of stuff. It was peaceful. Some people even drove by and cheered them.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
the whole spectrum.
Yeah. So after it was over, here's the interesting part. There were about 15 of them. The leader was going to bring my bus back to my house. I told them all, I said, hey, y'all come over if you want. So all 15 came over to my house, right? And they're sitting around my living room.
First time you had Klansmen in your house?
No, I had individuals, there. I'd had the leader there before.
This was your first throwdown?
First throwdown. Yeah. First, my own Klan rally. So I bought beer in anticipation. I don't drink, but they do. So I bought beer in anticipation of them coming. And plus, I always have friends who drink anyway. So I always have beer on hand for them. So they all came. 2 of them would not take anything I offered. They were very uncomfortable in my house. They were polite, but very short. Would you like this? No. You could tell they had never been inside a black person's house before, at least not invited. I don't know what they did,
When the lights go down.
Right, exactly. Shortly thereafter, everybody else was cool. They're happy, talking, and they called it a successful rally, a successful march. I didn't see anything successful about it, but nonetheless. Shortly thereafter, those 2 people who refused anything from me, they left the Klan. And mysteriously, the Wizard began receiving anonymous hate mail. Okay? The same kind of hate mail he used to send out. Okay? Saying that he was in bed with Daryl Davis, he was a nigger lover, nigger Daryl had brainwashed him, all kinds of stuff, right? So, anyway, the next day, I went out on my porch to get my mail. There were 2 police cars sitting across from my house, watching my house.
Really?
Yeah.
Had you called them?
No. Because, anytime you have an event like that, like a Klan rally or a neo-Nazi march or whatever, what they do is they take down tag numbers.
Okay.
So, for intelligence, who the cars belong to.
Of course.
Right. So they took the tag on my bus, and then I walk out of the house.
That's with something special, man.
Right. They weren't quite sure how to figure that one.
Yeah.
So then, I don't know, it must have been maybe 4 or 5 months later, Imperial Wizard, one of his members down in Tennessee, found a school bus for sale. And the price was right, so they bought it. Okay. So now they got their own bus. And he calls me. He was asking his members if they could come up with a name to put on the bus in the marquee that would identify the bus as belonging to the Klan, but only to insiders.
Right.
Only like-minded people would know. Otherwise it'd be attacked, right? Kind of like a coded word where the average person wouldn't know. And he asked me if I had any suggestions. He said, I'm serious. You saw the documentary. This is the kind of stuff that goes on.
Is this Roger Kelly?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So he asked me if I had any ideas. And I said, well, let me think about it. I said, yeah. Because, the Klan considers itself to be a fraternity. And, of course, they have female members, too. But it's a fraternity. So, in their eyes.
Okay.
So, as we know, a lot of fraternities started with Greek.
Yeah.
Okay? And so I said, you know what? How about Tri Kappa? Tri meaning 3, Kappa, K, right? And you put it in the marquee. He says, huh? Or what do you mean? And he didn't understand the whole Greek fraternity thing and the Greek alphabet, you know? And so he goes, I don't know, Daryl. I don't know. You know, you don't let me think about it. So anyway, he didn't use it. One of his guys came up with the name Special K. I said, no. Well, anyway, they called it Special K.
Okay.
Put it in the marquee, and about a month later, they got a letter from Battle Creek, Michigan, from Kellogg's. Does cease and desist.
Yeah. Oh my God. Kellogg's. That's some good shit right there. I mean, is this man's life not unbelievable? If like someone tried to make up a story like this and turn it into a movie, you wouldn't buy it because it's just not plausible. It's not believable. Except this is Daryl's actual life. And what I love about him, man, is like he finds a way to keep this lighthearted and funny. I mean, like you get to hear his laugh, and this is what we did throughout the entire 2-hour conversation. The man is simply extraordinary. Now, one of the questions that I had for him, and one of the questions that many people asked me when I told them about meeting with Daryl is, Daryl, how are you able to sit across the table from these people who say the most rancid, vile things to you and not take it personally? And he had a very simple answer for it.
When you really think about it, on the surface, somebody tells you something about yourself that you know not to be true. Maybe initially, you want to smack them or something. Yeah. But then just step back for a second and realize this person is talking out their butt because, they don't know you. Yeah. So they're making up stuff. Is what they're saying really hurting you, or is it really displaying their ignorance? You hit them if you want. And that's going to make you feel good. You knock somebody out or whatever. But you hit them and you may feel good about it, but you have not changed their mind. You have reinforced what they already think about you. Okay? But when you show them and they come to the conclusion that they were wrong and they admit it to you, that's your victory.
Yeah. If I'm going to play pop psychologist for a minute, I believe that one of the main reasons why Daryl does not take the hatred personally is because of how he lived the first 10 years of his life. If you remember from episode number 1, Daryl grew up as a son to someone who worked in the United Nations, and he lived all over the world and had exposure to all these different backgrounds, races and religions and demographics, and everyone accepted one another. Daryl did not experience his first taste of racism until he was 10 years of age, when he was marching for the Cub Scouts and people were throwing rocks and soda cans at him. And when his parents had to explain what was happening and what racism was, even though he trusted his parents and said that his parents had never lied to him, this concept of racism and that someone could hate him purely for the color of his skin scrambled his brain so much that he was convinced his parents were lying to him. It just did not jive with this worldview that was so firmly cemented in his first 10 years of existence. I mean, we've all heard that our first and our earliest years are the most formative stages of our lives that we carry with us throughout the course of our lives. And I think Daryl was blessed with this gift of when he experiences racism, like rocks and bottles being thrown at him, he didn't get angry, he got curious. And he's carried that curiosity throughout the course of his life, which has allowed him not to blow up or not to have his temper go, not to want to be violent against others, but rather to remain curious. And that's just my own perspective on this. As we move into this next segment of the conversation with Daryl, he talks about how fear is the most powerful tool known to man and how he had tastes of that early on in his life that he carried forward with him and some of the work that he's done.
And people say, well, you're brave. No. Courageous, no. It's more curiosity than courage. Because you have that ideology, because you have a robe and a hood or a swastika tattooed on your chest, does not give you any more power than you have without all that stuff. Fear is the most powerful tool known to man. I'll tell you a story, just to demonstrate what I'm talking about. When I was a little kid, another little boy and I, during recess, were outside on the playground throwing rocks. We weren't supposed to. Okay.
Where were you?
This is overseas. The janitor caught us. And now back then, the principal could spank you. Okay? And a lot of my classmates and schoolmates, got spankings, regularly from the teachers or the principal. For whatever reason, it may have been a racial thing that I didn't know about or whatever. The other little boy that I was throwing rocks with, he was white. He didn't go to the principal's office. He was let off the hook or whatever. I was taken to the principal's office. Now, I'm not saying it was racial. I don't know. The principal told me, I was in second grade, told the principal what I'd been doing. The principal said, Daryl, have a seat right there. He goes, I'll be back. I figured, okay, this guy's going to get his paddle. I'd never been spanked before by this guy, but I knew people who had. And so I thought, oh, God, here it comes, right? This was we had like 2 recess periods, like one at 10 o'clock and one right after lunch. This is during the morning recess when this happened. He left, his name was Dr. Shuey. Dr. Shuey, I remember his name all those years ago. Dr. Shuey left and walked out of the office. He didn't come back. The longer he was gone, my mind began to conjure up, oh man, he's gonna walk here and just beat the daylights out of me. I mean, I was terrified, right? Lunchtime came around. He was not back, and I was like really worried, because I was conjuring all these things that were going to happen to me. Yes, it'd be a bad one. Recess had occurred. I was still in his office in a chair, right? The buses started coming. You see the buses out the window, school buses, at the end of the day. Well, Mr. Shuey came back in the office. Man, I about jumped up to the ceiling. I was like terrified.
Because you were in solitary confinement.
Exactly. Yeah. And I had all this time to conjure up what this man was going to do to me. I was going to be just, that much short of dead when he got done. He walked in, I was like, braced against my chair. He said, Daryl, go get your bus. I said, but Daryl, go get your bus. And I got up and I backed out of his office.
Paddle.
Yeah. He had nothing in his hands, all right? I got on my bus. It didn't end there. All the way home, I knew he had called my mom at home. And my mom was going to punish me, right? Or he called my dad at the embassy. And my dad, when he got home, he was going to punish me. I got off the bus. I didn't even want to go home. I knew I was going, because my parents did spank me.
Okay.
This is back, in the day, right? Yeah. Now, I'll tell you what, I never considered spanking kids to be child abuse, especially if they deserved it. That was my era. Yeah. And there were times when I did deserve it. In fact, every time I got spanked, I deserved it. Okay. So, it wasn't like my dad got mad at work, came home and kicked me around. It wasn't like that. Okay. I would do things or not do things, and I got a spanking, and they were well deserved. Okay. So anyway, I didn't want to go home because I knew I was going to be spanked. I just slowly walked home, and I walked in, and my mom, hey, how you doing? How's your day? She's up to something, Yeah, and she's probably already talked to my dad, and when he gets off, he comes home, I'm going to get it. Nothing ever happened. And that taught me something. Because if Shuey had spanked me at school, 5 minutes after he left the office, came back, the paddle said, okay, Daryl, bend over, boom, 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 right? Yeah, I would have cried, it would have hurt, but then 15 minutes later, the sting would have gone, and that would have been the end of it.
Yeah.
But I was terrified all day long. There was no worse punishment.
Slow torture.
Yeah. And he didn't even touch me.
Yeah, right.
He said, Daryl, have a seat, I'll be back. And he said, Daryl, go get your bus.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing. That terrified the hell out of me. Okay? And I walked the straight and narrow. I didn't throw any more rocks. That was the ideal punishment. Fear is the most powerful weapon known to man.
Yeah.
Not the gun, not the bullet, not throwing rocks or whatever. When people put on that robe and hood, people get scared. Regardless of what's going on, they're scared. I'll take robes and hoods on lectures that I give at colleges. Some people want to touch it. Oh, no, I don't touch that thing. It's just a piece of material. There are people who wear a shirt and tie or suit. People who wear a Hawaiian shirt and Bermuda shorts, or tennis outfit, or police uniform, or a judge's black robe that feel the same way as somebody in a white robe and hood. But we're not afraid of those people. If they were to put on that robe and hood, all of a sudden we would be terrified of them. Yeah. We have to educate ourselves. Do not judge somebody by what they wear. You judge them by what's here and what's here, how they feel and how they think.
In this next segment, Daryl's wisdom and pulse on the current state of the KKK is on full display. And I found this to be one of the most intriguing parts of our entire conversation because he talks about how the KKK is so shrewd in avoiding stigma and rebranding themselves so they can continue to build their membership.
Sometimes these guys, they rebrand. It's the same stuff, but they use different terms because of the baggage associated with the Ku Klux Klan. Okay. Tom prefers to appear in suit and tie. He puts on a robe and hood a couple times a year doing a ceremonial kind of thing, but not out in the streets of in public or anything like that. Instead of calling himself Imperial Wizard, he calls himself National Director. Okay. It's like I'm not a janitor. I'm a maintenance engineer.
Yeah, right. Okay, gotcha. That's a nice little upgrade for your business card.
It doesn't have the connotation.
Charge.
Yeah, the charge, okay? Because there's so many Imperial Wizards out there doing bad things. The media does not say this particular Klan group's wizard. It just says the Klan.
Yeah.
And so the general public thinks that it's just one big Klan. So let me say this. Back in the day, they called themselves, all of them, they called themselves white supremacists. I'm a white supremacist, okay? And what they believed in was white supremacy. Along with that came a lot of violence and a lot of death, bombings, murders, lynchings, etc. Some people began to distance themselves from that. Even people in those groups. People on the outside, while many of them did not like black people or did not like Jewish people, they did not want to participate in murder and lynching, etc. So they would distance themselves from constituents who were involved in that. And that came under the name white supremacy. The population of them began to dwindle because people didn't want to go to jail, they didn't want to participate in murder or whatever. So the numbers of membership went down. In order to rebuild and recruit more members, they had to rebrand. So instead of using the term white supremacist because it left a bad taste, they changed it to white separatist. Oh, I don't hate black people. I just love my own. That kind of thing. Yeah.
I love you. I'm just...
Right, exactly. They can have their own playgrounds, their own neighborhoods. We should be able to have ours, our own schools, etc. All right? Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, okay, sign me up. Membership increased again, okay? And then the more members you got, there are those who want to, participate in the night riding and all the mayhem that the Klan is known for. And so now white supremacy had a bad name, white separatism began to have a bad name, and membership began to dwindle again, okay? People began leaving. So now they had to rebrand again. So now the term was white nationalist, okay? Here comes, I'm a patriot, I believe in my country, I'm a nationalist. Well, we all are nationalists because we like our country, but why white nationalist? There's a difference between being a nationalist and being a white nationalist. That begat a lot of violence. You see these white nationalist rallies, etc. So then they rebranded again, and then they came with the term alt-right. But at the end of the day, what's the cliche? A rose by any other name is still a rose. Let me tell you something, let me share something with you that the media does not tell you. They know, but they don't tell you. Here's what's happening. Let me give you a little bit of background first. When I was a kid, the black population in this country was 12%, okay? Native Americans were 1.9%. Very small, right? Hispanics, Asians, 2 and 3%. White people, 84, 86%. So white people of this racist mentality, their biggest nemesis, of course, were black people at 12%. That's too much. They were not concerned with 1.9 Native American. The attitude was, just stick them on a reservation and forget about them. That was the attitude. Okay, let's focus on 12% of black people who need to, contain them or something. So that's where they focused. Today, black people have not changed. Remain here now at 12%. We've not grown, right? Native Americans, according to, I think, 2017, are now at 2017 census, are now at 4.1%.
That's a huge, that's over 100% increase.
Yeah, but it's still, but overall, it's still not a lot.
Yeah, it's not big.
Okay? It's not big, okay? Still small, relatively. Okay? Blacks are still 12%. Of course, Asians here have grown.
Right.
But Hispanics have grown the most. Hispanics now are at 13%. They've surpassed us. So let's just take black people, 12%, and Hispanic people, 13%, let alone the Asians and the Native Americans. That right there is 25% non-white. Okay? So what white people are seeing of that mentality, they're seeing this happen. Okay? Now white supremacists tell a lot of lies, but there's one thing that they say is true. Non-supremacists also say is true. By 2042, this country will be like this. 50% white, 50% non-white. And then shortly thereafter, it's going to flip for the first time in the history of this country. Okay? So people of that mindset are freaking out. They're becoming disconcerted about that. They cannot handle that. When you have sat on the throne of power for 400 years, you're seeing your throne legs be whittled down, and now your butt's being lowered down to the level of those inferior people. That's very disconcerting. Nobody wants to get off the throne of power. Let's say me as a musician or any other musician, if we have a #1 hit, we want to stay on top of the charts. We don't want to become #2, #5, then also we fall off the top 100. We want to stay at the top, right? So does everybody else. So they are stepping up their recruitment efforts. They're calling it the neo-Nazis and the Klan people that alt-right people that I talk to. They said to me, Daryl, I don't want my grandkids to be brown. They call it the browning of America. Also, they call it white genocide. White genocide by miscegenation. All right? So they try to appeal to the mainstream of white people by dressing in suits and ties and disposing of the Robin Hood and some of the Tom Rob's group. Okay? So they're more attractive. They'll jump on a legitimate concern, like, for example, illegal immigration is a major concern in this country. So they'll say, hey, come join us. We'll fight illegal immigration together. But here's the problem. When they say illegal immigration, it's a code term, all right? They're not talking about people from Canada or the UK or Eastern Europe. They're talking about people from West Africa, South America, Mexico, Cuba, okay? Because if their kid were to marry somebody from Canada or the UK, the grandkid's going to be white. If their kid marries somebody from Guatemala or El Salvador, they got a problem, right? Okay? So here's what happens. They're seeing this happen, and they're trying to stop it. There are plenty of people who embrace this change. They know evolution happens. You're not going to change nature. Things are going to evolve, and people welcome it. But there's a certain segment of our population that does not want to see this. All right? And they're going to do everything they can to stop it. So they go and they join these groups. So these groups are now recruiting based on that fear, the caravan, okay? All right? So they join the group. The group promises, we're going to take our country back. When it doesn't happen, these people get frustrated. They say, you know what? The Klan can't do it, or the neo-Nazis can't do it. I'll do it myself. And that's when they walk into the synagogue, boom, 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 or the black church, boom, 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 or New Zealand, boom, 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 boom. Okay? Those are called lone wolves. All right? It's not easy for intelligence, but it's easier for intelligence people to infiltrate a group than it is to infiltrate a lone wolf.
Of course, because it could be anybody who decides to break.
Right, you can't infiltrate one person, right? As we get closer and closer, unfortunately, as we get closer and closer to 2042, we're going to see more and more of these lone wolves. This is why we have to be vigilant. This is why we have to address these issues now. Become proactive instead of reactive. All right? And unfortunately also, a lot of things occur around the birthday of Adolf Hitler. Okay?
When is that?
April 20th.
Okay, so that's coming up.
Exactly. And as we get closer and closer to 2042, we're going to see more and more things happen around that time.
Interesting.
Because he was somebody who wanted to commit genocide of the Jews and everybody else. Yeah. So those people, they're on their last stance. When they saw Obama become president, that just freaked them out. They were not ready for that.
Didn't they galvanize?
Yeah, exactly. We've come a long way, but it showed us how much longer we had to go.
Yeah, for sure.
This next segment is a fun one. Daryl describes how white people were the ones who put Barack Obama into office and how rock and roll from 60 years ago started to sow the seeds of black and white coming together, which eventually ended up in a generational series of events that allowed Barack Obama to ascend to the presidency. You'll enjoy.
It was white people who put Obama in office, not black people. You understand that, right? Okay? Because black people are only 12% of the population in this country. Now, 20 years ago, Obama could never have won an election. There had been black people who've run for president before. Of course, they lost because white people were not ready to accept a black person, just like they're not ready to accept a female or whatever, right? They don't want a black, there are plenty of black people who are qualified, there are plenty of females who are qualified, but the mentality in our country was not ready for it 20 years ago. So over time, attitudes began changing. And so in 2008, they were willing to take a chance. If every black person in this country, all 12%, every black person, even babies and their dogs, could vote, that would not have been enough to put Obama in office. We still needed the white vote. Yep. And so there were plenty more white people who were willing to vote for that black man in 2008 than 20 years ago. Yeah. That's what I mean when I say it took white people to put him in office.
Yeah, I get you.
Okay? So now, let's go back to music for a second. I'm going to show you how it all ties in. Back in the day, just like, you've seen the colored water fountains and colored seating sections in bathrooms and all that kind of stuff, white only, all that kind of, you've seen those in your history books, okay? There's some of us who've seen that in real life. All right, now, back in the day, concert halls, music venues, if they allowed black people in at all, the seating sections were segregated. There were ropes going around the chairs, the seats that had signs hanging off of them that would say, seating for white patrons only, colored seating only, things like that. Say in the 1940s, you and I were to go see Frank Sinatra or Glenn Miller Orchestra or somebody, we would not be able to sit together. You had to go sit in your section, I sat in my section. How ridiculous is that? But that's the way it was. And that was the law. That was the law. And if we crossed that, we were breaking the law and we would go to jail. Just like Rosa Parks. It was a stupid law to try to make her give up her seat on the bus, but it was the law. So she got arrested and went to jail. All right. In the 1950s, that law, Jim Crow was called, was still in place. And people, for the most part, abided by that law. People didn't break that law. But in the mid-50s, two phenomenons happened. Rock and roll was invented by black people, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Fats Domino, Bo Diddley, and several others, all right? It was popularized by white people. Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins, Buddy Holly, Bill Haley in the comics, and a host of other people. That new beat caused white kids and black kids to go crazy. They could not sit still. They bounced up out of their seats, knocked over those ropes and signs, and next thing you know, they're boogieing and dancing in the aisles together for the first time in the history of this country. The establishment went crazy. They began shutting down rock and roll concerts. The police would come in and shut them down because of race mixing, right? And city fathers, like mayors, people like that, began banning rock and roll concerts from coming to their towns because it caused race mixing, which was illegal. So think about it like this now. These white kids and these black kids that were dancing together in the 50s and these rock and roll things, they went to segregated schools. They weren't going to school together because schools were not integrated until Brown versus the Board of Education was 1954. They just integrated overnight. It was over time. So they're going to separate schools. But now they're dancing together for the first time. They're experiencing one another, and they're learning that what their parents told them was not necessarily true. These people aren't demons. They're okay. We're all enjoying the music. We're just dancing together. Exactly. Okay. So now their parents had instilled a lot of this racism in them. So even though they're dancing together, that's as far as it would go. With most of them, there might be some who are a little more curious and get involved or whatever. For the most part, most of them would dance together or whatever. They might not want to bring you home with them, at that point in time. But now they become a little less racist than their parents, right? And they grow up and they have kids. And so they don't inoculate their kids with the same degree of racism that they were inoculated with. So their kids are now a little less racist. And now schools are definitely integrated, so on and so on. And then their kids, their great-grandkids, are even less racist. Those are the ones who voted for President Obama. Mm-hmm. What started that? Rock and roll. I'm serious, man. Look, there are plenty of great black and white civil rights leaders. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, a whole number of other ones, black and white, who some who even gave their lives, like Martin Luther King, to bring black adults and white adults together through marches, boycotts, demonstrations, sit-ins, protests, on and on, okay? But these rock and roll people, white and black, Elvis, Jerry Lee, Chuck, Richard, Fats, they were achieving that with black and white youth, with their music. Yeah.
If you remember from the first episode, I said that the number one love of Daryl's life is his love of music. So I thought that the only proper way to finish out this episode number 2 was to share a story that Daryl has about the healing and unifying power of music.
If you work for a computer company or a bank and you were to have a party, a get-together, most of the people at your party, if you're a computer person, are going to be computer people. They're going to be IT, hardware people, software people, computer sales people, developers, etc. All right? Same thing with the bank. You're going to be a bunch of tellers, a bunch of branch managers, a bunch of auditors, etc. All within that little genre. But if you have a music event, everybody's going to be there. The bankers are going to be there. The computer people are going to be there. The restaurateurs are going to be there. The garbage man's going to be there. The guy who paints the double yellow line down the street, he's going to be there because he likes music too. All right? So let's say this Friday night, I want to go out dancing. I go to this bar. Maybe there's a live band. Maybe there's a DJ. Whatever it is, there's music at a dance floor. I go there. It's a good song. The band's playing a good song. The DJ's playing a good song. I want to dance. People are dancing on the dance floor. First thing I do is I look around to see if I see some single woman, right? And because I don't want to take your woman, right? So I see some lady sitting at the bar, and she's doing like this to the beat of the music. So obviously she likes it. I don't know her. I'm going to walk over and say, hey, you want to dance? She's going to say, yeah, because she's into it. She pops off her bar stool. We go to the dance floor. If it's a slow song, we're like this, turning around on the floor slowly, right? I don't even know this woman, but we have our arms around each other. If it's a fast song, we're apart, we're shaking, whatever. At the end of the song, I escort her back to her bar stool. And I say, hey, by the way, my name is Daryl Davis. What's yours? And she says, my name is whatever her name is. I say to her, so what do you do? And she says, I'm the vice president of East Coast Microsoft. Whoa, she's making, $500,000 a year or something, right? What do you do, Daryl? And I said, I'm a busboy at Cracker Barrel. I'm making, $9,000, $10,000 a year, right? Yeah. Where would two people that far apart of the spectrum come that close without even knowing each other? Yeah. Okay? Music did that. Music got that Klansman up from his table to come over and talk to me. And I can tell you something, because I know, which will take me back to the first story. If I had just come inside that bar by myself, not as a musician, I would have had to fight my way out, because I've done it. And what was funny was this. You know who Charlie Pride is?
I don't.
Charlie Pride is a phenomenal black country singer.
Okay.
And he was like the second biggest record seller for RCA Records behind Elvis Presley. He's a phenomenal singer, and he's still around. They'd always see me and ask me to play some Charlie Pride songs, because I'm black.
Yeah.
I would intentionally not sing them. I can do it, okay? I would let one of the white guys in the band sing the song, and I'd play it.
Yeah.
But when I would sing white country songs.
Okay.
Just to mess with them, but show them that, just because somebody's black doesn't mean they can't do something else than what you expect them to do.
Right.
I've seen Hank Williams and George Jones and whatever else. Yeah. Willie Nelson.
Yeah. And you were saying, who was it? It was Chuck Berry, B.B. King, Little Richard,
Fats Domino, Bo Diddley.
And white people took what they were doing and then popularized it.
Yeah, exactly. Look, should I assume that white people can't play the blues? They got it for black people, but they can play it.
Right.
Okay? You got Eric Clapton, Stevie Ray Vaughan, a whole host of other people. Well, guess what? Black people can sing country too.
Yeah. I remember you were saying, or maybe it was in the documentary, the reason why you joined that country music band is because what was the movie that came out, the John Travolta movie?
Yeah, Urban Cowboy.
Urban Cowboy.
Yeah.
So basically, you want to play music, and that's what people were listening to.
Exactly.
You jumped in. And
as a musician, I'm a service person. I'm providing a service. If people are not buying your service, then you're going to starve.
Yeah.
Whatever the trend is. If it's swing, then I'm going to play swing. Bebop, then that's what you got to do. My degree is in jazz. But I'm out here playing rock and roll because that's what I get paid to do.
Yeah, and it seems like you have a love for anything music.
Yeah.
So, you'll play what the audience wants.
I'll play when I'm paid to play.
And what is your favorite thing to play?
What I'm paid to play.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Episode 2 is officially a wrap. Tune in to the final installment of this 3-part conversation with Daryl Davis, where we cover some of the most provocative parts of our entire 2-hour conversation, including going behind the scenes on the most contentious exchange that he had with members of the Black Lives Matter campaign, which was documented in the documentary Accidental Courtesy, where he almost came to blows, it seemed, with members of the Black Lives Matter campaign. What has happened since then? And what Daryl's perspectives are on the fragmented Black Lives Matter movement. He also talks about why he believes that Donald Trump is the most important thing that's happened to America. And finally, he goes into why he believes most interest groups don't ever really make an ounce of progress or difference on the issues that are most important to them. Hey, did you get something of value out of this podcast? If so, I'm going to ask you a favor. Would you be so amazing as to go over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and a review? Your ratings and reviews can show someone who's just discovered our podcast for the first time that we are worth listening to. And that way we can reach a wider audience. So please head over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and review. You rock.